Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll make a start on today's meeting. Welcome to the Prosperous Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and today is Thursday the 28th of March. Welcome to the member of public that's joined us as well. It's always good to see somebody interested. So we're going to straight on to item 1, which is apologies.
Received apologies, Chairman, from Councillors Ward, Thompson, Hayden and Reverend Metcalfe.
Thank you. I think everybody else is here. Yes. Any declarations of interest from members? No. Minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of February 2024. Do we agree that those are a true record? I can sign them off. Can we have a proposer and a seconder? Graham, Philip. And we'll move straight on to item 4, which is our Household Waste Recycling Centres update. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. The purpose of this report is to allow the committee to review and make comments on the implementation of the van and trailer permit and commercial trade waste policy changes introduced. Also the introduction of a short application process to allow local groups and such as scouts, litter pickers, voluntary church and church halls to use the HWRC network for recycling material. I'm just going to run through some of the headlines really of where we've come from since March 2022, when the household waste recycling sites were successfully brought back in-house under the control of the County Council. On the 17th of May, Cabinet agreed, following consultation with yourselves through the scrutiny process, to bring in a trade waste van trailer permit through Cabinet. That was implemented on the 5th of June. Restrictions on the disposal of commercial waste for businesses outside of Staffordshire were introduced. On the 4th of September 2023, the trailer permit system went online and then introduced to use for Staffordshire residents only for the disposal of household waste. As of the end of February, there were 13,826 permits issued, so you can see the success there of the sign-up for those permits. And we're pleased to report, I noticed something was mentioned here at Scrutiny, was possibilities of increase in fly tipping. There don't seem to have been any increases in fly tipping reported from the changes that have been made. On the 17th of May 2023, Cabinet approved change to the policy to reflect easier use for voluntary groups, charities and individuals at our HWRC. That was in response to inquiries from members of the County Council and also from people that were coming to our sites and asking for those special uses for those voluntary groups and charities, which was the right thing to do. Additional 7 groups registered since the policy has changed. Along with all of this, we've brought in numerous improvements to the household waste recycling network, including a JCB replacement programme, which will make obviously better use and better carbon reduction use as well of the sites, and also to save money and more efficiency throughout the network. And they are detailed in the report in some detail as well for you. The reuse facility at Cannock is currently out to tender. If you remember, we had a debate at Scrutiny about the future of that, and Catherine House are the current providers. That is currently out to tender, and obviously we'll bring you an update when that is resolved in the future. One downside really since the publication of the report is and if there are any South Staffordshire members here, will know that the Wombourne site is currently out of action. There are 2 sites in South Staffordshire. This is the southern one. And after investigations, subsidence on the internal roads of the site were discovered, and it was deemed no longer safe to be used for the public. And due to the nature of the issue, there is no reopening date at present. And the Council is currently, our officers are currently exploring alternative options for provision in the short term. Residents can take their waste to the Bilbrook household waste recycling site, which is in the north of the district, and also use bring banks where possible. We're keeping obviously local members, parishes, the district and also the public up to date with weekly updates. The last one went out yesterday, and hopefully we'll have more news next week on alternative arrangements because of the problems that have been discovered at Wombourne. So that's my update. Obviously over to the committee to comment and ask questions to the team. On my left is Nick Bentley, and on my right, we've met before, obviously, is David Atkins, who will work with me to answer any of your questions on the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Simon. Any comments? Bernard?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to ask, particularly since the problem has occurred at Womburn, and of course people are concerned now by reading that within South Staffordshire, the very fact is, do we see any other sites having to be closed down within, shall we say, the next 12 months, couple of years? And what are we going to do, particularly if that actually happens? Because what people are now worried about as well is having to travel so far to deposit waste. And of course, Cannock, which is a wonderful place to take your waste, but that seems to be never ending as far as receiving waste. How long can that go on?
Thank you for that. I'll bring officers in a minute. I think this a unique situation has developed in Womburn, hasn't it, that's come to light. I think and I'll bring Nick in a minute, who can talk to the robustness of the rest of the network. But I think obviously South Staffordshire is a very long, thin district, so you have your northern, you have actually two sites when they're both operational, but unfortunately, because of the distance, that is a 10-mile jog, isn't it, from the Womburn site to the Bilbrook site, so that's not ideal. So that's why we're looking into alternative arrangements. But I'll bring in Nick now on obviously the problem at Womburn is quite unique, but the robustness of the network is in general. Nick.
Yes, thank you. As Simon has mentioned, it's unique in Womburn in what we've experienced there. A number of other sites, we've got no issues, have not identified any issues, anything close to this. We've recently done some work and are continuing doing work at Leak Waste Transfer Station, and that is basically known maintenance and repair work that's been needed to be done on the site to get it up to spec. But as far as we're aware, all the rest of the sites are all fine and no problems at all.
It's probably just worth adding that we do regular inspections of the other sites, so there is a regular inspection and maintenance regime that goes on at all the other HWRCs. But the issues at Womburn are very much unique and about the sort of land lie actually in Womburn.
First, apologies for lateness. I've had some issues or some complaints around signage around the household waste recycling centres, particularly with the change of arrangement over DIY waste. And I just wondered whether you're making sure that the signage was up to date. I'm obviously talking particularly about the Leak household waste recycling centre, that wasn't clear. And I don't know why it wouldn't have been clear, but anyway, that's certainly the complaints I've received, and I just want to make sure that you review signage so that it is clearer.
Thank you for that. Bring Nick again in a minute, but of course we have generally improved all the signage across all of the sites, particularly since the change of bringing back a house into Staffordshire County Council run, but of course there has been those changes with the rubber use. But I'll bring Nick in on the actual signage relating to that.
Yes, thank you. The changes in the charges occurred earlier last year, towards the back end of the year. We knew that there was new charges which would be introduced from April. New signage has been done and has been made and has been dispatched now, actually. They've been installed now, ready for April the 1st. So there will be new signage with regard to charges, making it clear for residents what is applicable and what isn't.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've no issues whatsoever with the report, and I'd just like to say how brilliantly the Newcastle Recycling Centre works in comparison to when it was under Amy. And the staff are politer, nicer, it's swifter. We don't have carnage on the road, which we used to have, with Amy forcing people to go round a one-way system, which was ludicrous. And I just say, your staff are great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Graham. I think that will be passed on, from the committee. And I think we do see across the network, obviously, praise for the staff, now back under, Staffordshire County Council employment, and also with the new branding and the new sort of philosophy around working on the sites. And I think you highlight the Newcastle site. I think it's not an ideal site. We talk about some sites that it's up in the north of the borough, only one site in the Newcastle borough, and it isn't ideal, but the work that we're doing there to try and make it as good as possible for local residents to get to and also to use. And of course we know there that when we change over empty the canisters and stuff, is that it has to be closed during that period because of the size of the site, whereas a lot of sites can operate while things are being changed over. So I think in the long run, we're looking for a new site in the Newcastle area, but while we're still using the Leasit site, we're making sure it gets used as to its capacity and to the benefit of the residents of Newcastle Borough.
I have a buyer for the site, by the way, if you want to sell it. So I just thought pass that on for a commercial trailer park.
Was that a declaration of interest then?
No. I was just knowing that somebody was looking for one.
Microphone.
Nothing to do with me.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Yeah, just from a district perspective, is the waste transfer station changes, are they on track? Are they due to be completed on time? Obviously, it has a big impact on the arrangements that we have in Staffordshire Moorlands.
Yeah, we have in regular contact with the contractors, and they are telling us they will be on schedule. There might be a period of a few days, we're not sure what dates yet, where the Household Waste Recycling Centre might have to be closed because there's a national grid and need to put a new power cable across. But that will have no effect on the operations for the domestic collection vehicles, but it will have an impact on HWRC for a couple of days.
There again is what we're doing with Wombourne and what we would do with any other sites where we've had, there are sometimes always ongoing incidents. We had a fire, didn't we, in Cheadle, I believe, wasn't it, recently, on the site, is to get the comms right so that people, we use social media, we let the local members and also particularly parish councillors as well, that, usually get it in the neck if something happens, as we've seen in Staffordshire, there is a lot of concern when people turn up to the site and they can't get in. So we need to make sure signage, alternative arrangements, and also that messaging goes out, and we'll ensure we do that in Moorlands if that has to close at the Leak one.
I want to echo the good news that's in this report, and the fact that 13,800 and something permits have now been done. There's been very few complaints about online registration. We've had 3 new authorities come to us asking us for help and how we've done it. So that can only be good for Staffordshire, that we're leading the way for other authorities to follow. It's really pleasing that Catherine House have got the contract, although it's coming up for tender. And let's hope that can be sorted. And you've already covered the Leak and the Wombourne sites in your report and your verbal update. So if nobody else has got any comments or questions, then I recommend that we take the 3 recommendations on block, and I ask for a proposer, please. Graham, second to Charlotte. Thank you. And just obviously this is our last meeting, Simon, so just from me and the committee, thank you for the commitment that you've given to this committee over the last year, and the team, Nick, David and anybody else that's involved. It really, really does work when we all work together. Thank you.
That if I could, Chair, and thank the committee during the last year for the work, particularly when we were looking at the permits and the van trailers and the permits for commercial trade. I think, the site visit that was held as well, if you remember, when we were all in the back of a bus going around the county to Cannock to Lichfield. Yeah, that was, and that's where we picked up some of the early issues on relating to local groups and scouts and parish litter picking people, that they would need to have access, you know, and that we've made that possible. And that's something that came through scrutiny and local members. So I think I'd say thank you to you and the committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move swiftly on to the HS2 impact on Staffordshire update. Are they? There they are here. Good morning, Jonathan, and I forget your name, sorry.
My name's Bill Slater.
Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, and good morning all. My name's Jonathan Lord. I'm Senior Stakeholder Manager for HS2, covering what's called North Geography, which includes Staffordshire for Phase 1. Thank you very much for inviting us to today's committee. A very timely update in terms of what we're doing within Staffordshire, and also the benefits in terms of the work we're doing to promote the skills education and employment agenda within the county area. I thought I'd touch on a programme for Phase 1. I would also talk about the latest position on the former Phase 2A section of the programme, and then concentrate on C and also go on to legacy in terms of some of the update from the HS2 funds and some of the community investment initiatives that our contractor Balfour Beatty Vinci are doing across the county. So to start off with, what I've put up is a high-level programme of works that are currently ongoing for Phase 1 across the county. And also I'm going to touch on some of the work that's planned to start within the next 12 months as well across the county for Phase 1. You'll be aware at the last meeting of the committee, my colleagues came and discussed the then recent government announcement in terms of the rephasing and slowing down of works. We were asked to rephase some of our construction works and slow down in other areas in Staffordshire for Phase 1. So since that announcement in last year, we've been doing a lot of work to look at the programme for Phase 1 and in terms of what work are we continuing and what work we'll be starting. If you go down the line for Mainline North, now Mainline North is basically HS2 jargon for the section within Staffordshire for Phase 1. There's a section that says remobilisation, and that basically is something that we are still working on. So the work that we'll need to undertake, the work that's been paused and in some cases stopped for the time being, the plan is to work through that this year with the potential to remobilise on other work within 2025, 2026. So again, once we know more about that, we'll obviously share that with the Staffordshire community and yourselves as members. I'll touch on the big piece of work, which is the A38 around Street A. You won't be surprised to know that is one of our major pieces of work where work is continuing. That's one of our key milestone pieces of work across Staffordshire, within Staffordshire. And again, some of the work that also is just over the border in terms of work to the M42, which you may be interested in there. So that high-level programme there sets out the communication milestones, the construction milestones, and also the road closure areas as well. So again, hopefully that's quite a helpful high-level programme on works that are currently ongoing across the county. If I move forward, this is work that's due to start within the next 12 months. And again, it's set out in terms of the communications piece and some of the key construction milestones as well. So again, obviously this is high level, and once we get more detail in terms of the when and how this work will start and what it will look like, we'll be obviously continuing that through our engagement and communication through the remainder of 2024. If I move on to the A38, I think probably this is the main piece of work that's progressing within the county. And as imagine as councillors, you probably are fully aware of this piece of work and probably having quite a lot of conversations with your members of your ward, the local communities as well around Lichfield and beyond. So where are we? So If I move to the next slide, which is probably a bit more detail there. So work is continuing to complete the southbound slip road. We did anticipate this would be complete in spring. However, due to the recent weather conditions, we've had to extend this into June this year, where it will be completed. We then will move to the North Slip Road, and at the moment we are working with Staffordshire County Council, your officers, and with National Highways in regards to the impact on the A38, what this looks like and when this will start. So again, after the next few months, we'll be able to provide more detail and communicate this to yourselves and the local community in terms of what this looks like. But there is a lot of work to do around the A38 Street A junction. That's, as you'll probably be aware, it's one of our key engineering pieces of work in the county, and it's very complex in terms of how we manage the impact on the local community and on the travelling public on the A38, which we all agree is a key arterial route within the county and beyond. So again, piling work for the Street A retaining structure has commenced, and we will continue this until May. And as I said before, we are preparing for the next phase of this particular section of the project. So again, just some of the illustrations there and the pictures will give you an indication of the extent of the work that we are doing and in terms of what we need to do over the next few years. Thought I'd touch on communication, just a bit of a reminder in terms of how we communicate our works. So we always produce and publish advance works notifications at least 2 weeks in advance of the works commencing. For major pieces of work where we impact on a highway and there's a substantial highway closure or impacts such as the works around the A38, the A5, for example, A51, we will always try and do more than 2 weeks to give not just the travelling community, public, sufficient notice to find alternative routes if it does involve a closure, but also work with local businesses to make sure they can plan accordingly, and obviously the local community as well. So there's a lot of, and this will include talking, obviously going out, arranging drop-ins for people to attend so they can actually hear what's going on and ask questions to our team. Obviously making sure it's on our website as well, so we always direct people to there. And obviously talking to other stakeholders such as yourselves as local members, but also parish councils and town and the city council in case of Lichfield as well. So again, it's always about how we communicate in advance and make sure that people are aware. And if it does involve a long diversion, which some of them tend to do unfortunately, making sure that people are aware of that and can plan in advance. And that obviously involves talking to schools and bus companies where relevant. Just a few examples in terms of how we promote. There's a community drop-in from last year. So again, this is promoted. We hold it locally. We may sometimes also accompany it with a website. Sometimes a webinar works quite well as a drop-in, a physical drop-in, especially for the business community. That's the feedback we've received. And then there's an example there of an update, a newsletter update, which we publish probably on average either quarterly or twice a year, which we communicate. And we cover a lot of pieces of work and what we're proposing to do in a particular area of Staffordshire. We obviously communicate that. Since the last committee, we attended the last committee, I think it was September, we had the Prime Minister's announcement about the future of Phase 2 in October, and obviously we've since received a directive from the Department for Transport on that basis, and obviously the key message for Staffordshire was the cancellation of Phase 2 of the railway. So for Phase 2A, or the former Phase 2A as I should call it, a few updates in terms of where we are with that. In terms of safeguarding, you probably would have heard this by now, that earlier in the year the government announced that safeguarding of land and property across the majority of Phase 2A had been removed, apart from a section around Hansacre. And that is why we are still working to complete the plan for how we connect to the West Coast Main Line to allow our trains to move north. Acquired land and property, which is a question that's obviously asked. So we are working with the DFT, Department for Transport, to develop a programme for handing back temporarily possessed land and for selling land acquired for HS2 that is no longer needed in Staffordshire. This will take time because we need to make sure the programme provides value for money for the taxpayer and does not disrupt the local property markets. As you can imagine, what would happen if a lot of property went back onto the market in one go. So that needs to be very carefully managed to respect that, how that we don't distort that in Staffordshire in particular. Obviously, in terms of sites that started for under 2A, so we are developing a programme to restore the 1,000 borehole sites, so it's safe for the landowners to use, and the work on site is expected to start towards the end of this year, with completion in summer 2026. So it will take us time to undertake that work. There were 70 proposed environmental mitigation sites along the Phase 2A route, and at the time of the cancellation of Phase 2, we had completed 46 of these sites. At the remaining 24 locations, the sites have either not been completed or work has yet to commence. So whilst we intend reinstating all the non-completed sites back to their former state, we are working through the most appropriate approach with the 46 completed mitigation sites. So there's quite a lot of work to be done as we work through what we need to do to reinstate and remove our works and complete what we need to do in terms of how we move back the sites where we did work on for Phase 2A. So quite a big piece of work, and you'll still see work taking place, even though obviously Phase 2A is cancelled, just to get that message across. So moving on to the key aspects of the committee, talking about basically where we're at with maximising the benefits for Staffordshire in terms of skills education and employment, and in terms of what we're doing with the supply chain to maximise the benefits for Staffordshire companies. Bit of a headline in terms of, we'll start with HS2 Limited in terms of how it fits in, how does it work in terms of our workforce, of which I'm obviously a permanent member. In terms of the numbers, in terms of breaking down the number of the West Midlands workforce, so as of December last year, that's the latest stats, there are 921 individuals who are based within the West Midlands working for HS2. And in terms of Staffordshire, and we've only got this detail at county level, there are 98 full-time equivalents working for HS2 Limited. So that's hasn't changed in terms of the ranking. So if you break it down into local authority area, which is mostly based on unitary and county level, that Staffordshire is overall number 2 after Birmingham. So that's good to know that there are a significant number, a proportion of HS2 Limited workforce that are residing in the county. What I wanted to touch on next is the approach to skills education and employment. And this is, I think you've seen this slide before, I think it's been shared previously. Most of the work that's undertaken on this very key aspect of what we're trying to deliver as a project in terms of maximising the local benefits is undertaken by our main works contractor, Balfour Beatty Vinci. So this is their approach in terms of generating interest in the STEM subjects at an early age in terms of work in schools and colleges, which is incredibly important, and that's their overall objective and programme set out there across the area they work in, which is north for Phase 1. Accelerating the skills needed to deliver the HS2 programme. So again, a lot of work in terms of upskilling people and supporting people get into particularly the engineering world, hopefully allowing them to develop skills for life and that beyond the HS2 projects and apply them accordingly. Embrace communities and create pathways to sustainable employment and career progression. So again, making sure that working with particularly those individuals, long-term people who are long-term out of work, in terms of making sure they get the right support, working with partner organisations to maximise their opportunities to work within the project and beyond. And then work with local stakeholders to maximise the regeneration of benefits of HS2. Again, making sure that they are looking at pre-employment training days and work trials, particularly focus on people who've been out of work for a long time, and particularly focusing on young people who require some, the special kind of support that we are able to offer and work with other partners to deliver. And again, finally, there's developing technical, professional and personal effectiveness skills of our workforce as well. So again, supporting people who are working for us and working particularly for Balfour Beatty Vinci to achieve and to retain professional body status, to make sure they're actually, obviously, they've got the right skills and they're retaining and developing throughout their career working for Balfour Beatty Vinci in Staffordshire. A few headlines, and this is broken down into local authority level in terms of district and within Staffordshire, some of the district authorities, but there's some high-level stats here. So where we're at in terms of some of the headlines here. So this relates to the last quarter we've got the reporting information for, which is quarter 3 of 23, comparing it 23-24. The first page compares it to the previous stats for the same quarter in 22-23. So you can see that workless job starts in the quarter 22-23 was 68 in Staffordshire, with apprenticeship starts 46. And if I move forward, you can see how that's improved over the subsequent year. So we've now increased to 106 workless job starts and 57 apprenticeship starts as well. So a good high-level increase there. So some good news there in terms of the positive outcomes that are happening across the county. And how does that compare to Staffordshire then? It is in terms of the wider West Midlands stats there. So you can see there in terms of a breakdown there, in terms of the stats, in terms of how that fits in with the districts of Staffordshire, breakdown in overall 1,414 workless job starts across the West Midlands. And again, the same stats for apprenticeship starts as well, in terms of how does Staffordshire fit in with the 499 apprenticeship starts across the West Midlands area. And then the next table, which I included in the pack, breaks that down into the different districts across Staffordshire. And you can see then there's a comparison there and how this compares between the previous quarter and the last quarter we've got information for. And in general cases, it's been an increase. So again, the work that particularly Balfour Beatty Vinci are undertaking in Staffordshire seems to be bearing fruit. So that's really good to see, and hopefully this will increase. There's going to be a caveat to this, obviously, because we don't know how this could be impacted by the slowdown and rephasing of work for phase 1. And also the impacts potentially from the phase 2A cancellation. So it may be that this will start filtering down for the next year at least. We don't know, but it may then generate a reduction or a standstill. But again, we don't know that at the moment. But at the moment, it's in the right trajectory. So again, some stats in terms of what we've been doing through our skills education and employment engagement. So again, there's a number of events that particularly Balfour Beatty Vinci undertake, working with HS2 in terms of skills and employment events, and particularly with careers in education, working with key partners. Some of these are put on by Balfour Beatty Vinci and HS2 ourselves, and some obviously are working with key partners across Staffordshire and some of the colleges and schools as well. And in the pipeline, we've got the Lichfield Jobs Fair, which actually has taken place now. That was the 19th of March. And we've got Wilnecote High School and then John Taylor Free School in the pipeline. Again, this is a really good opportunity to promote not just STEM in terms of the subjects, in terms of the importance of the subjects for young people, but also for the actual career opportunities that BBV and HS2 are bringing to Staffordshire as well. So, and this will continue. This is really important work stream that we're delivering. A bit of a snapshot of some current opportunities that are being promoted by both BBV and HS2 within Staffordshire. And of course, it's important to emphasise that some of these jobs may be based over the border. Literally, in case of North Warwickshire, there's a big skills centre off the Kingsby Road, just off the junction 9 of the M42, which is just literally over the border from Staffordshire. So again, there's some opportunities there. It may not, although based in North Warwickshire, hopefully it will benefit people living over the border in Staffordshire. So again, some job opportunities, and they are promoted. And you can see that how we regularly make sure that job adverts and the jobs bulletins are sent to key contacts within the county. And there's some key names there that obviously we appreciate their support in getting getting these advertised and getting these out to Staffordshire's communities. So again, a good example of how we work very closely with your officers in promoting the opportunities for Staffordshire. And again, in terms of some of the apprenticeships that we are BBV are recruiting. There's groundworks apprenticeships and a bit of detail there about the groundwork apprentices. What does it mean? What's the benefits and what these apprenticeships entail? And again, these are also opportunities route-wide that are being promoted there as well. So a good opportunity for people to get benefit from the apprenticeship schemes that particularly Balfour Beatty Vinci are promoting in Staffordshire and beyond. I thought I'd share, nothing really brings something to life more than some case studies. So I shared some of this in terms of some of the work that particularly Balfour Beatty Vinci have been undertaking. One at the Friary School in Lichfield, a mock interview day. Again, a really good opportunity to develop the skills of in Year 11 pupils thinking about going into the workplace. And obviously, I think some of the I've been seeing some of these taking place. I think the young people who go to these and students get really a lot out of it in terms of its the applicability of moving into the workplace, and they may not have come across a job interview before, so I think that's been really useful as well. And then moving on to some individual examples as well of Staffordshire individuals who've benefited from jobs or from some apprenticeships there. So the first person mentioned actually has got a really interesting story in terms of how they came to the UK from Afghanistan and obviously learnt new skills and is now working with BBV as a materials tester. So again, a really good opportunity there where we've worked very, very hard with somebody who's probably experienced quite a few challenges along the way and is now working successfully with a place within Balfour Beatty Vinci. Another apprenticeship, again from Staffordshire, Samuel Morris. Their story there is set out again, so a really good, hopefully good story that will lead to them staying either in engineering or even hopefully getting a job within the project as well. But as I said before, some of the skills and experience such people learn will hopefully give them a good starting point to work on similar projects and in the future. So it's hopefully skills for life. I'll touch on local business involvement. One of the key legacy opportunities is for local businesses to benefit from contracts. And so far, over 110 million has been spent with Staffordshire businesses. And a key aspect of this is that 3/4 of the supply chain to date working on the project are from small, medium enterprises. So again, it's a really good opportunity for small businesses and small fledgling organisations and enterprises within Staffordshire to get involved. And there's a lot of promotion in terms of how we try and be proactive, particularly some of the work that Balfour Beatty Vinci have been undertaking and working with HS2 in actually doing events to promote opportunities to the supply chain in Staffordshire. So again, I'll meet the contractor events. The last one was held last year, but again, a good opportunity for local businesses to go talk to people directly and understand what we're looking for and what the process for registering interest and hopefully for competing for contracts is. For a lot of businesses, obviously it's working through the government compete for process, which is probably very new to most businesses, especially if you're a small organisation or business. So again, there's making sure that we can demystify that process and support businesses as much as we can. This is really important that we do that. But again, this is some of the promotional work that we do. And there's a lot of resources out there on our website and on the Compete For website that the government has set up. I think there's obviously going to be further opportunities, and again, for businesses not to think just within Staffordshire. There are obviously opportunities while we're building phase 1 between Birmingham and Old Oak Common, the first focus in London. So again, it's thinking that actually there's a lot of opportunities here, not just thinking within Staffordshire boundary, but also beyond. So again, the more we can get this message out, the better. But again, there's some, hopefully, really want to see some local businesses in Staffordshire benefit from the project. A few touches on legacy and on the HS2 funds. And again, there's a bit of a good news story here. In terms of the HS2 Community Environmental Fund and the Business Local Economy Fund, the projects continue to come in across Staffordshire Phase 1. It's important to emphasise that the the Community Environmental Fund and the Business Local Economy Fund for Phase 2A obviously is now stopped to coincide with the stop of the Phase 2A project. So there are no further funds no further projects being accepted for Phase 2A. But for Phase 1, the projects continue. That is very much open for business as normal for projects across Phase 1 of the route in Staffordshire. And Staffordshire remains a priority for the funds to recognise that from the outset there was a slow start-up of projects in the county. So to date, there has been 33 projects awarded across Staffordshire, which has been, the total amount awarded is over £1.5 million, it's 1.6 million. And the funds remain open until the first year of operation of the project. So there's quite a few years to go yet. So we are always promoting these funds when we go out and talk to communities, particularly talking to parish councils and the City Council in Lichfield. But again, for members, obviously there's a really good opportunity for you to talk to your constituents and see if there's any projects that could benefit. There's a really good website that Groundwork manage in terms of there's a really good frequently asked questions document which hopefully demystifies the funds and talks about what projects can be funded and what not, and what the process is. But as I've said before, if you've got if you come across any projects and you want to run it past me in the first instance, I'm happy to get some informal advice and opinion on that to you before any communities move forward on that. So these projects are very much, these funds are very much still out there to receive projects. So again, let's continue that trajectory in Staffordshire and get some more projects funded. And there's a few examples there of recently funded projects, one being the Shenston Tower in the south of the county. And that was a project to support the refurbishment of the historic tower, and also to support the kind of promotion, the sort of tourism opportunity angle there as well. And that's been completed. And I think that's a really good legacy of the project in that particular community of Shenston and beyond. And then the other one this is really good to see on a personal level, because I used to work for Walsall Council, and this was one of the key projects that we used to speak to over the border with Lichfield about the Hatherton Canal Restoration Trust, and this has been going on for a long time. So it's really great to see a grant has been awarded to them to restore another stretch of the canal. So again, really good to see this, and I was really pleased to see this because, as I said, this is a really good project to support. So again, good examples of some of the projects that the funds are supporting. Along with the actual funds, Balfour Beatty Vinci are required and are very happy to do so in terms of their community investment projects. So this can complement the community environmental funded projects by HS2. So these aren't giving money, these are actually giving time and resources to smaller community projects. So there's been some really good projects that Balfour Beatty Vinci have been supporting, that we've also been helping on as HS2, but some good examples there of where the BBV have been working with some smaller local groups and organisations to support them. So again, a donation to the Pathways Project, which is a Staffordshire-based domestic abuse organisation supporting adults and young people. And again, there was a £1,000 donation to them from Balfour Beatty Vinci. And again, and some of the work on the ground where Balfour Beatty Vinci are able to support and offer resources directly, and so Stevens Primary School in Fradley. So again, it's support in establishing an outdoor play and learning facility. So again, they actually physically giving resources, helping support the construction of some of these resources as well, and also time as well and advice. So again, if you're aware of any projects that could benefit from this type of support and involvement, please let us know, because this is always a good opportunity. And it's about working in those, giving something back in those communities that we are affecting during construction. So we're always keen to do that. So again, any projects or any ideas, please do come to us and we can investigate that. So that's a quick run through, Chair, of the slides and where we're at with HS2 in Staffordshire at the moment. obviously very happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. Can we make sure our questions are around employment, skills and education, please? Graham?
Sorry, Chair. Mine's about Junction 15, which isn't on that list. So I assume it's not starting in 2024. But I was wondering, because it's such an important junction of the A500 and various other, and the M6, when will work, because it's on your list, I've been told, in the future to make that junction more efficient. I was wondering when that might start and what will the impact of that work be on the surrounding area. Thank you.
I think that was, did that relate to phase 2A work?
Yes, it's phase 2A, but it is in the list of phase 2A that will continue.
I don't know that in terms of what the position of that councillor is, to be quite honest.
Is it possible that you could find out?
I'll definitely find out.
And let us know through Jonathan or the chair. Thank you.
David?
Thank you, Chairman. I've got 5 points, Chairman. I do apologise.
As long as they're around employment, skills and education.
With the cutting back on the A38, does that make a difference on the aggregate requirement from the sites at Orwis? The second thing was, are we making progress on the clean-up of the areas that we've already worked on? We seem to be making greater and greater areas where we're, to be slightly rude, making a mess, but not actually cleaning up behind us. Presumably that won't happen until you start laying track. The next thing was the no mention of Tamworth in any of the reports that you made. You mentioned Lichfield, but you don't mention Tamworth, unless it's quite small, and maybe I've missed it, but I couldn't see any reference. With the change that's coming about with HS2, where it will connect to the West Coast Main Line, does that in effect mean that most of Staffordshire, because of the existing stops on the Staffordshire West Coast Main Line, will actually have an improved service rather than a lesser service than it would have had before? Because effectively HS2 had no station stops anywhere in Staffordshire, so it had limited benefit. It still won't benefit South Staffordshire, but presumably Stafford will benefit. And the last thing I was going to mention was that as far as the funding is concerned, we're looking in my division, which is very much affected by HS2, we're looking at doing a hedge replacement programme as part of the Green Agenda. Is that something which in principle, I'm not asking specific approval, but something that in principle would meet your requirements on potential funding? Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll try and answer as much as I can on these. I'm going to ask my colleague in terms of aggregate. Is that a question we can answer now?
Yeah, probably. Okay, so in terms of aggregate, there is a lot of aggregate stored at various sites at the moment, but it is all to be used. It will all get used. It may not get used straight away. It may not get used this year in certain areas, but it is all purchased to be used, and it will get removed at certain points. Okay, so on some of the sites that we've got that have been closed down, there is aggregate already stored in those locations. Yeah.
We're just looking from my division's point of view of how quickly we're likely to see a clean-up. I mean, if you go along the A5 where the new bridge has gone across, there is an absolute mess of works that are going on. My residents' concern is when are we going to start to see something going back to some form of normality?
If I talk about the A5 specifically, it's probably sometime in 2026, is the reality. There's a lot of work to be done there.
So in terms of the landscape, we mentioned about landscape mitigation, so replanting,
Yeah.
finalising of that. That will obviously happen when the works are complete, because obviously it wouldn't be worth planting if we're going to then still work in that location. So unfortunately, it probably is a fair bit off before we landscape.
If HS2 funding was able to help the regeneration of hedgerows, that would be something that would be compatible to what you're currently doing.
In principle, we could explore that. It might be a project that could actually fall between both. So it could actually be complemented by some of the work that Balfour Beatty Vinci are doing. So there could be something that they could support from a community investment perspective, but it could be something that could come through the funds as well. So if we talk offline about that, perhaps, and we can explore it a bit further, Councillor. West Coast Main Line in terms of service. In terms of the conversations about how we connect to the Hansacre, it's the Hansacre Junction in terms of connection to the West Coast Main Line, until we know how we're doing that, how that's connected, we won't be able to confirm the level of service in terms of to the Staffordshire stations like Stafford, Stoke, etc. So again, it's kind of watch this space until we're able to confirm that. So that work is undergoing at the moment. So and in Tamworth, you mentioned about no reference to Tamworth. Do you mean in reference to some of the skills, education, employment initiatives, Council, or did you mention? Do you mean generally?
Sorry, I've got a tremendous amount of background noise and I'm having difficulty hearing.
Okay, all right. Sorry, in relation to Tamworth, was your concern about the lack of reference to skills, education, employment work?
Yes, there's no mention in what you've got. You show Lichfield and you show all the other districts, but you don't mention Tamworth.
Right, okay. I will double check whether there is anything planned for anything in Tamworth itself. Obviously, Tamworth as a local authority was obviously the more focused, impacted by the old Phase 2B Eastern route, which obviously did go actually within Tamworth's area. I know obviously North Warwickshire is very close to Tamworth, it's a very small borough. But in terms of our focus is always, I mean, if there are opportunities to work with Tamworth schools, I'm pretty sure we would take it because obviously that's a key opportunity within Staffordshire. But it may not be the actual focus of us at the moment because it's not directly impacted by Phase 1. But obviously, if there are opportunities there, if you're aware of any, if you could point us in the right direction, we'd be willing to explore that, Councillor. I think that answers the questions. Have we missed anything, Councillor? Sorry.
My A38 aggregate.
Okay. So will it impact on what we need from the Orowus site?
As far as I'm aware now, it shouldn't. Shouldn't impact that site.
I was concerned because we've had a tremendous amount of work and complications of heavy vehicles going through Orowus and the surrounding villages. And I wondered whether the changes in HS2 were actually going to show a reduction in that, or whether the completion of the existing work will make no difference.
As far as I'm aware, it shouldn't really make that much difference to what's currently happening there. I believe the quarry there does have some additional contract work to do, but nothing to do with HS2.
Yeah. Kim. Okay.
Any further questions or comments from members? Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Fortunately or unfortunately, my division isn't affected at all by HS2, so we won't get any funding for any projects in it. My borough ward may have been affected if we'd have gone ahead with a 2A by building the power unit there and wrecking the countryside by having pylons across it. But I just have to look at the figures that we've got here. And we're saying that Staffordshire has prospered by the increase in jobs. But when you look at the whole picture, actually, Staffordshire really hasn't every job is welcomed and everybody being employed is welcome. But when you look at the bigger picture, Staffordshire really hasn't had that much of an impact on it when you look at the figures overall. Prosperity, I think David might have been referring to, was it the quarry at Orey that wasn't? I mean, have they actually done any work there since we had to force it through in planning for the aggregates that were needed? So obviously they won't be needed now. So will that quarry ever be used? So there's a loss of prosperity. I don't know. I'm not very happy at all with what's gone on here. It just seems to be, you know, it's just not working. I don't think it's working for Staffordshire much at all. And it's only a very minute part of Staffordshire that's actually benefiting it, and it's all south of Staffordshire. The mid staffs and north staffs, nothing at all. Thank you, Chair.
I think we've still got quite a few years to go. Hopefully that we'll keep maximising those benefits for Staffordshire. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't know how that will impact in terms of the cancellation of phase 2. Again, that could impact on the opportunities, but we will do our very best to work with the partners in Staffordshire we've established to maximise those benefits. I think they're coming through. Let's keep the momentum going.
Thank you. Although Tamworth is not well represented within the report, you have got a visit to Wilnecote High School for mock interviews on the 17th. We've also got a sixth form centre, the Landau 40 sixth form centre in Tamworth, which you might want to have a look at as careers. We haven't massively been affected as Tamworth as a borough, but we do have the A5 M42 junction 10 junction. A lot of people travel down the Sutton Road. I travel down it 3 times a week to visit dads. And we've now got a road that goes off to the left for about, well, not very far. And then they're building, it's going over, isn't it, there? Yeah. So the Sutton Road impacts Tamworth. The A38 impacts Tamworth. As I said, the A5 M42 junction impacts Tamworth. So although we're not actually mentioned in the report, you have to look at where Tamworth residents travel to and from. So I'm hoping that we can apply for some funding, even though we're not impacted directly. So I will be passing that link on to quite a few people within the Tamworth borough, because we are affected by the roads that we take to get here out of Tamworth. So I'm really pleased with the jobs and the apprenticeships that have been created through HS2. It's no secret that most of us on the county were not HS2 favourites. Just briefly, now that the phase 2A is now not going to happen, there's going to be people that were going to be working on that, apprentices that were going to be working on that. Where will they go now? Will they just go on to a different route, or will they be directed somewhere else?
Yeah.
Okay, so when the reorganisation happened, the actual workforce in Mainline North was restructured. So the majority of the workforce that we had, I think we had around 1,000 staff at the time. A lot of those have been re-employed along the route further south. Some have been let go, some have sought other work. And as it currently stands, we've got around 150 staff working on Mainline North, as it is. That's in the offices and roundabout. Actually out on the ground there's probably about 500. So the workforce has been cut pretty much in half. Once that work picks up again, then the staff will increase again. And we've got a lot more work to come. So you'll see over the next year, 2 years, that the staff will increase again significantly.
Yeah, and for obviously 2A, you won't be surprised to know that there obviously would have had to be a reduction based on we're not proceeding with it. However, there is still work, as I outlined, to remediate some of the environmental sites, to close down some of the sites obviously started, and there's obviously some work that needs to be completed. So there will still be work taking place, but there has unfortunately had to be a reduction.
Yeah, because you also own a piece of land at the top end of Wilnecote, which is my ward, Swallowhurst, where houses were built, and then HS2 bought the other piece of land where the houses were going to be built. So hopefully that will go back. I think it actually sits in North Warwickshire, but it's right at the top of my ward where houses are, so we'll look closely at that one. Any further comments or questions? No? Thank you, Jonathan, for coming in, and yourself. When do you feel that you need to come back to us?
I would say probably 6 months,
Right, okay.
if that works for you.
Because we'll make sure, obviously this is our last meeting of the municipal year,
Yeah.
so we'll make sure that's planned in for you to come back in 6 months' time.
Okay,
And
thank you.
again, thank you for the communication that we've had from you. A lot of people will say that HS2 don't communicate. I think we've been very lucky at this committee that you've always come in when we've asked you to, either online or in person. So thank you both very much for the support you've given.
Okay, it's our pleasure. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
We'll move straight on to item 6, which is the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education, the SACRA Annual Report 22-23. Now, Michael, as you will see, is not here today. You've all received the report. Have any of you got any questions that we need to take back to Michael, or are we all happy with the report that was sent?
No questions from you, Chair.
Charlotte?
I mean, I picked up from the report that the syllabus does not have to be adopted within multi-academy trusts. So I would be interested to know what is happening in multi-academy trusts and whether we're happy with what's happening there, or rather they are happy with what's happening there, because increasingly schools are academies, and if the curriculum only relates to a declining number of schools, then that's something that we should be aware of. The other issue I wanted to raise was around diversity and inclusion, and how they are specifically addressing that, given that we have a number of major religions within the county, and I would like to know how we're embracing that input from many of our, I mean, obviously not in my patch quite so much, but across the county, there will be other religions. It talks about the focus of the curriculum being much more on sort of world events, and I would have liked to have known a bit more about how that's being addressed, because I think it's important that if we're going to make it relevant, and given that it is a requirement, then it has to be made more relevant to a population which is not necessarily church-going. So I think that whole area has to be explored, simply because otherwise it's going to be a bit of a dodo, in the sense that it's something which is required by schools, or minority of schools, but if it's not relevant to pupils, then there'll be less interest. And I was interested also in why our GCSE results are consistently below the national average.
Have you captured all that, Jonathan? Those will all be passed on to Michael, and hopefully he'll be at the next meeting and he'll be able to briefly answer those for you, Charlotte. Thank you, everyone, for that. And then we've got the work programme. Jonathan.
Yeah, so as you said, Chairman, this is the last meeting of the municipal year, so I've just put together a draft programme for next year, which obviously is subject to change. You'll see there's 3 items, or possibly 4 items, already listed for your meeting on the 30th of May that you need to give some consideration and approval to, if that's what you want to take.
Oh, he's got it there. So we've got the cultural strategy from Victoria Wilson. We've got the review of jobs and brokerage service from Philip White. And we've also got employment and skills strategy from Philip White. Are we all happy with those for the 30th of May? Brilliant. Please ensure that we read the reports on all of those. They're three very important
Chair,
things. For
can I say, Jonathan mentioned a possible fourth. I think those three are more than enough. So we don't want anything other than, because the last two, cultural strategy might be shorter, but the other two we're going to be diving into and quizzing Philip.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we try and put too many items on an agenda, the last item always gets run through really, really quickly and doesn't give it, we don't give it the what it deserves. So 3 items is enough.
Okay, well, it's up to you, Chairman, but you usually take a work programme planning session item for your first meeting in the municipal year.
Yeah.
So whether you want to defer that to is it June meeting, maybe, or slot another meeting in to do an informal work programme planning session.
When we did it at the beginning of this municipal year, we did that at the first meeting, an informal one. So if there is a meeting maybe a week before, that we can slot it in.
Okay.
And then Darryl can come to us with everything that we need to be looking at for the next year and any repeats that we need to do. So everybody happy with that? So that obviously the date of the next meeting is the 30th of May. And that brings us to the end of today's meeting. But before everybody packs away really, really quickly, today is Jonathan's last Prosperous Scrutiny Committee and has worked for this authority. I'm not going to tell you how many years he's worked here, but he's worked here for a number of years and he's taking very early retirement. As you can see, he's not old enough to retire. And from this committee and from myself as chair, Peter as vice chair, thank you so much for the commitment that you've given to this committee, because it's not always been easy. It's not very easy working with all these different people and cabinet members and officers. So thank you for the commitment that you've given to this committee and to the commitment that you've given to this council. And I'm sure everybody as a committee will wish you very well in your retirement. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Clap.
Thanks, Chairman.
You're not going to say anything?
Just to say thank you, Chairman. If I hadn't enjoyed working with members, I wouldn't have done it for 36 years. But I've got an elderly mum to look after and my own health isn't brilliant. So I thought now is the time. As the chief exec used to say, go at the time when people ask, why are you going, not when are you going?
I didn't quite realise it was 36 years, so that means you've been here since you left school then. Yeah. So thank you again, Jonathan, and I hope that your health improves and elderly parents, yes, I've got one of those now and he's not in the best of health, so I'm with you on how much time that takes, but thank you very much. And that's the end of the meeting. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Darryl, as well. Forgot you sitting up in the corner up there. Thank you to you and your team for the commitment that you've given and the work that you've done to keep us on track as well. Thank you. Thank you, members. And that's the end of the meeting.